Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting video on our channel. Today we'll be demonstrating just how simple it is to implement authentication using Next.js 13 and the powerful NextAuth package. With Next.js, setting up protected routes becomes a breeze, and you will have the flexibility to choose from a vast array of authentication providers such as Google, GitHub, Facebook, and many more. For a deeper understanding, don't forget to explore the NextAuth documentation on your own. In this step-by-step tutorial, we'll be using GitHub as our preferred authentication provider. To make your learning experience even smoother, we've prepared an accompanying article packed with helpful syntax and code snippets, perfect for copying and pasting as you follow along. Click in the link in the upper right corner or find the link in the video description below. If you're new here, consider subscribing to our channel for more engaging and easy digestible programming content. Now, without further ado, guys, let's dive right in and get started coding. Alright guys, now we come to my favorite part, which is of course actual coding. Our channel is very hands-on, so all of the stuff we show you is very hands-on, and we encourage you always to code along with us because we think that's the best way to learn. I'm using WSL2 here in case you're wondering, with Windows Terminal on Windows 11. If you want to know about my development workflow, there's a whole tutorial series on this YouTube channel that is completely free. I'll drop the link for you, but there's also a Udemy course, a complete web development WSL2 Udemy course that we have created that you can also check out. I'll leave the link for you down below. Alright, so the first thing we are going to do is we are going to create a completely new Next.js 13 app. So we do npx create -next-app at latest, and it's already automatically suggesting me here because I of course created this project beforehand to play around with it. So we're going to do exactly the same here. This is a plugin for WSL2 that's called auto suggestion, so it recommends you commands that you have run before, just in case you're wondering. So we do Next.js -auth -app, and this creates a new completely fresh project for us. Here we're just going to hit enter on all of the prompts. We're not going to use TypeScript, and just leave everything on default. That's the default way of setting up a Next.js project, just so that we are all on the same page. It should just take a couple of seconds to finish. And then we are going to cd into this new created folder, and I'm going to clear the screen here. Now I'm going to install the npm package for NextAuth. So that's simply npm install next-auth, and that's all we need to install. Now I'm going to make that smaller and drag it down in the corner. Then next, I'm just going to quickly show you how that looks like. So if we go to next-auth.org, and this is of course relevant if you don't want to use GitHub as your authentication provider, you can just go to documentation. And if you click on providers, you will find explicit instructions for all of the different providers they are supporting. And as you can see, there are a lot of them that you can use to log in. You can use Twitch, Twitter, whatever, so many things, even Spotify. So they have basically all your bases covered that you might ever need. So the next thing we need to do is we actually need to create an authentication provider on a GitHub. As I said, we are going to use GitHub in this application. To do that, you need to log into GitHub, into your GitHub account, and then you want to click on your icon here and go to settings. There's also a direct link in the article that you can click on to get there. Now I already have a couple of applications here that I was experimenting with, and I also have created the Next.js Auth app already. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to do that again so we are all on the same page. So I click on new auth or new OAuth app here to create a new one. Then we put the name there. You can put there whatever you want. I just call it Next.js Auth app video for this case because I already have the normal one. And then for the homepage URL, you select localhost 3000. This is simply because it needs to do a callback, and it needs to get that authorization callback URL later that's based on your homepage URL. And the same then goes, you just can copy that and paste it as an authorization callback URL, and here you set up a little bit a longer path, which is localhost :3000 and /API/auth/callback/GitHub. This is very important, otherwise it will not work. Now bear in mind that if you deploy your application later on services like Netlify or Vercel or wherever else you're going to deploy, you have to go ahead and change this URL later, because you will need to put this into an environment variable, which we're going to do in a second. So also be aware that if you deploy that on Netlify, you need to add environment variables directly in Netlify, and the same goes for Vercel. So always keep in mind that if something is not working, probably you have the wrong authorization callback URL or wrong homepage URL in here. Anyhow, we click on register application for now. And then you will end up in here, and we just leave that window open until we have created our local environment files, and then we are going to create our new client secret. So I'm now going to open up VS Code inside of our project folder. Of course, I'm going to drag that over here for you. And this is a very basic Next.js application, and there is nothing much going on in here. We have a public folder, we have our pages folder with the API route that we are going to utilize in just a sec, and we have all of our files. Now the first thing we are going to do here is we create a new file, and we call it .env.local. This file will hold all of our environment variables that we need to use throughout this application. Now the first thing, or the first things we need to do, is we need to specify a GitHub ID. And you have already guessed it probably. We can go back to our browser here, and let me drag that over. And the client ID is referring to this OAuth ID basically. So you're just gonna copy and paste that in here. And then we also need the GitHub_secret environment variable. And for that, we are going to generate a new client secret. So for that, you just click here. And then, you need to confirm your identity. And if you have set up, like me, some advanced authentication, you need to do that. So I'm quickly approving that in my GitHub app on my phone. And we should be good to go in a second. All right, so it has created our client secret here. And as you can see that, it's displaying here. It only displays once. So in case you don't manage to copy that, you have to create a new one because it will disappear. You can only see that once. And then you paste that in here, and that's basically it for that. Then we also need to add a NextAuth _URL, and we also need to set that to localhost. Again, if you deploy that somewhere, make sure to adjust it accordingly to the actual live URL of your project. Now, this is not 100% required in development, but it's recommended to do so. We also need a NextAuth secret, which is basically a JWT token. NextAuth secret, did I write that correctly? Yes. And then we can just go ahead in our terminal, wherever you are in Linux or on WSL, we can use the OpenSSL rand -base64 and 32 command to create a random token. Now, what exactly does that mean? The OpenSSL rand base64 32 command generates a random string using the OpenSSL command line utility. Basically, OpenSSL, that's the tool that we are using. Rand is a subcommand of the OpenSSL tool that generates random data, and base64 is the option that specifies the output format. In this case, it tells the command to output the random data in base64 encoding. And the number 32 refers to the number of random bytes to generate before encoding them in base64. So we can just paste that in here. There was a lot of information on this particular command, but just so you actually know what you are copy and pasting here before you have no idea what's going on. Next, we are going to set up the NextAuth or the next.config.js file to be able to use NextAuth. So to do that, just open up the next.config.js file, and then we need to basically just edit this module exports here on the end. So we say module exports, and then we open up a object and we say ... next config, because we still want to export that also. And then we say env : open another object, and then we say GitHub ID, and then we say process.env GitHub ID that we just set up, and we also do GitHub secret and set that in there. And then we just make sure to save the file, and we can continue with the next step, which is setting up our NextAuth API endpoint. Now open up your pages folder, open up the API folder, and very important, inside of the API folder, first go ahead and create a new folder that is or will be called auth. And once you have that, inside of the auth folder, create a new file that opens up some square brackets first, and then we say ... next-auth, close the square brackets, and then say .js, and this is or will be our NextJS NextAuth authentication API endpoint route, so to say. Okay, so the first thing we do is we import NextAuth from next-auth, and then we say import GitHub provider, if I can type that, from NextAuth providers, and you see this is a folder, and there you can see all of the different providers that they support. In our case, we want to choose GitHub. Then we are going to export a auth options function here. We say square brackets in the end. Then we say providers, open up square brackets. Then we say GitHub provider, as Copilot suggests here. And then we need to set up the client ID, which is process.env GitHub ID, as well as the client secret, which of course is the client secret. Then we close that up. And all the way on the bottom, we have to export default. And then we say NextAuth auth options in here as a parameter. Okay, make sure to save this file, and then we can go on and do the final setup step here, which is wrapping everything or wrapping all of our application in the NextAuth session provider. So I'm going to close that for now, and we go inside of the _app.js file inside of our pages folder, and we need to mod. So we leave it as it is here. Then we say import session provider from NextAuth React. And then we need to modify this default export of our application here. So we say export default component is still fine. And then for page props, we need to actually say page props : and then we say session, page props. And don't worry about that if you don't understand what all of that means. It's just the way NextAuth has to be set up. And then in the return statement, we need to actually change that. So we need to add some parentheses here around, and I'm going to copy that down here. And then we say return, and then we wrap our component inside of the session provider that has also session as a prop in here. And then we say session provider to wrap that in. And I forgot something somewhere, probably, as always. Let's see. That should be fine. That's also fine. Then we have the return. Oh yeah, it probably doesn't like it that we have nothing around it. So we actually need to set up a React fragment around those so that the top level is like a fragment. And then we need to wrap around our... No, come on. No, it still doesn't like it. What did I forget? God damn it. I hate when this happens. I'm just going ahead and I'm going to copy and paste that. It's probably some minor error. I think I forgot the square, the squiggly lines around that too. So this is how it looks correctly. This is the way how you have to set it up. Just type that off or copy it from the article. Okay, finally, let's go ahead and open up our index.js file. Or actually, let's first do npm run dev to actually look what the app is currently looking like. Okay, that's running. So we go localhost 3000. And yeah, this is how it currently looks like. Of course, it's all messed up because we changed a bunch of things. Now let's go inside of index.js and delete everything that is here. And instead, we are going to create a simple, very simple homepage. So we say import link from next link, and then we go export default function, call that home as it was before. Then we open our squiggly lines, square, whatever. I always messed it up, square brackets and squiggly line brackets, whatever. Return, and then we say div, just put an h1 here, and we say home. And then we say p, this is the homepage. You can view it without being logged in. All right, so we got that going for us. And then we just want to put a link here that actually goes to the protected route that we're going to create in a second. So we say link href and / protected. Let's put it like this. Okay, so that should show up here, protected route. Just make that big because I'm lazy to create a button here now. Okay, so this leads to the protected route that we haven't created yet, but we are going to create it next. So inside of your pages folder, just create a new file that is called protected.js. Okay, and in here, and this again, or not again, I didn't say that actually yet, you can use that same methodology for every protected route that you want to create. So if you want to create a protected endpoint or page or whatever, you can always use this method of protecting it. So we import use session, sign in, sign out from NextAuth React, not client, but React. Wrong. Okay, there we go. So then when we have that set up, we can export our default function, protected, parentheses, square bracket, god damn it, curly braces. Then we do const curly braces, data, colon, session. And we could also use status, but to keep it simple, we just use session for now. And then we say use session. Okay, so this is what we need to put at the top of our function to access the session object, so we can verify if we're actually logged in or not. Now then we can do a simple if statement, and we say if there is a session present, then return something. And what we want to return is some protected content, of course. So we do a div, we say h1 protected, this is a protected route, yeah, cool. And then we say there is a sign out button, and this is the sign out button or sign out function that we imported here also from NextAuth. So this is also included in that package. And then we do div to close it up. And yeah, cool. So that would be the protected section that we can only view if we're actually signed in. So let's try if that works. So we go to the protected route, and it should return something here, which it doesn't. Of course, it doesn't return anything because we haven't made a else here, which is quite important to display something. So of course, now we cannot see anything because we are not logged in, but we also don't have the option to actually log in. That's what we need to do next. So down below here, that's basically the else statement there. So we do return. That means then if the user is not logged in, and then we say, you need to be signed in to view this page. And then we access the sign in button and close that up with a div. And now we should actually see something, and we do see something. So we got that here. We are on the protected route, and this is working as intended. Now, if we click on sign in, we get forwarded to GitHub, and we click on sign in with GitHub. And then it asks us if we authorize this application to basically sign in. And now we should be redirected, and we are signed in this protected route, which we only can view when we are signed in. Now we can also access the session object, which has access to your GitHub data. So we could just say, instead of this is a protected route, you can only view it when you're signed in. We could say, welcome, then open some curly braces. We can say session user. So we have access to that object, and we can access name, email, but in this case, I'm just using name. Welcome. You are allowed to view this page. And this is now my GitHub name, so you can see it shows up here automatically through the session object. And we have also actually access to an image, so to our GitHub image. We could also drop that in here. Just make sure to drop it inside of JSX syntax, and here we need to say session, if my keyboard still works, session.user.image. And if we do that, we should see my lovely GitHub profile picture showing up here, so you can see you have access to that as well. And then if you want, you can click on the sign out button and you're signed out again. And of course, it changes to our else, so that we are locked out and we cannot access it. And as I said, you can use this methodology to protect any kind of route. You can also protect API endpoints, which I'm not going to cover in this particular video. But yeah, I think that's a really easy way to use authentication in NextJS app to just protect some routes. Maybe you are working on a CMS or something that you want to protect some stuff in the backend, and that's a very, very easy and convenient way to implement authentication with Next.js. So guys, I hope you did like this video. If you liked it, definitely give it a thumbs up, and also subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more hands-on programming content. If you want to improve your coding skills, this is the place where you want to be subscribed. I hope you could learn something, and also definitely check out the blog. I'll drop the links to the WSL2 stuff as well as the article, of course, in the comments in the description below, and then you can check that out. There's tons of programming related content on the blog as well as on this YouTube channel. Would be happy to have you as a subscriber. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you back in the next one. Until then.